Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about Java 14, the LTS wrap-up edition. So the Java 14 will release on the 17th of March this year, and it has gone to ramp down stage 1 and soon ramp down stage 2, so it's starting to actually be solidized and we know what's gonna be inside of the release now. It's just bug fixes and other testing that is going on at the moment. So let's look at what will be in this wrap-up release, and it's for the long-time support, so this is what Oracle will give support to the large companies that use Java for the foreseeable future. So this is the version that they will support. The other versions in between are just intermediate versions with other features and so on, but this is quite a large one because it will be used for a long time. So first off, we have JEP 305, and this is pattern matching preview. So it's not done yet. You can test it out, you can work with it, but it can be subject to change. You can actually get a different API. But this is the suggestion they have so far, that if you look at a specific instance of an object, you can actually give it a variable name right on the if statement like this, and then you can use the variable S inside of the if statements. And this is really nice. It's something that I really like, because there's work that you need to first look at the instance and then give it a variable name. That is quite tedious, so this will be a little bit more concise. I'm not sure if I really like the syntax. It's not really clear to me that you are actually giving the result to S. If you have any suggestions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below and we can have a discussion about this. But I'm not really fond of the solution, but I like the attempt that they are actually looking at finding a better way to do this. Next up we have JEP 343, and this is a packaging tool and it's in the incubator state, so it's not even shipped with. It's something that they are working on. They might give you some tooling that you can try out. It's not for production. It's supposed to take something that you are built as an application and want to install on a system, either Linux, Windows or Mac, and package it in a format that works for that platform. So for Windows it's exe or MSI, for Linux it's deb or RPM packages, and for Mac you have these package and DMGs. So it's an interesting subject and something that I will look into more in an upcoming video, I believe, because this is something that I like to keep in touch with and actually know how I can package my applications going forward. Next up we have JEP 345. And this is Numa aware memory allocation, and Numa stands for non-unified memory access, and this is memory allocation, and this is for large scales deployments, and when you have your memory situated on memory modules that are far apart, you can actually decide where to put your data on the different modules in order to improve performance. So this is for more large scales implementations, and it's only for G1 and it's only on Linux. Some support in the system in order to use this feature, so it's only for Linux so far. Next up we have JEP 364 and 365, and this will give the ZGZ to Mac OS and Windows. Before we had this implemented in Linux only, and now we have this garbage collector also for Windows and Mac OS. So that's really nice. Now we can use this feature on our systems if we are running Mac or Windows. JEP 361, and this is the switch expression, and it's now becoming standard in this release. So this is a feature that is done, and it hasn't really changed since the last preview. It just has solidified, so now the implementation is there. So now you can use the switch statement in your production environment and for your production builds. So that's a really interesting. It's not so much to say. I have previous videos about 12 and 13 that I talk about switch expressions. It has been in the works for at least a year, and now it's done. Then we have JEP 349, and this is JFR event streaming, and this is for profiling and monitoring of your JVM. So it will stream events of what's happening in the system in a performant manner, and then you can have a monitor application that reads these events using this API. So so far it's just a defined API and a work in progress, but I believe when this is actually set into the JVM, we will have even better tooling for monitoring and profiling, and those will be really nice to have for your production environment to debug things and to actually figure out what is going wrong in your long-running applications. Next up, we have non-volatile mapped buffers, the 352, and this is a way to read files and memory and so on using the byte buffers with the file channel and mapped byte buffer, and it will perform better on volatile memory on Linux systems. So this is for Linux systems as well, due to that the mmap map sync is available on Linux. So we have a requirement to be on a specific platform to use this specific feature. So this was the first of the memory features in this release. The next one is 370, and this is Foreign Memory Access API, and this is an incubator, so it's very early stage. It's a new API to securely access native memory in a quick and efficient way. Before you used unsafe and other things that were deprecated or hidden from you because those were actually internals in the API of the JVM and not something that you as a developer should use. But now they have taken the step to actually create something that you can use as a developer to use native memory in an efficient way. It's still an incubator, it's something that they are discussing. You can come with suggestions and improve this API during this process, but it has started by this release. So there is an implementation that you can test. Next up, we have JEP 358. Have you ever been confused by a null pointer exception or been really terrified that something went down in production because you got a null pointer exception and you needed to find the solution fast? This JEP will try to give you a helpful error message to help you find what's wrong, because when you have a null pointer exception, the system knows more about that failure than you get. So now you will actually not only get the line number where the problem ended up happening in the specific file, you will also know which variables were involved in this. So you will know if it's just a variable that is null, or if you are doing an access on an object that is null and which object that was, and so on. So it will be much more helpful in figuring out what actually went wrong. Next up, we have records 359, and this is the first preview of records. And records is pretty much an immutable data structure where you have a constructor where you set all the values into the record. You get getters, so you can get the value out, or the values out, the members. And you have hash code, you have the equals operator and the toString operator. And all these can be overridden as well, but this is a way to write data classes in a very concise and simple way. So it's also a nice improvement to the language. It's just a preview for now, but give it a few iterations and it will be standard in the implementation, or standard in the JVM soon. Next up, we have text block, and this was introduced in JVM JDK 13 as a preview, and now we are on the second preview, and they have added some things. First off, we have some ending here that you can actually see. If you have a text string that starts here and you have actually a text that is flowing, you want to keep the actual spacing, but you want to have it as one long string. You can add these slashes so you don't get new rows. And if you like, you can also put -s here, and this will give you extra spaces, but but still keep the rows if you need to have it in a specific way. As you see here, you still get this indentation here, so it will be clipped to this side, and if you didn't have these markers, it will be trimmed on the other side as well. So some things that also will be added to this implementation are some functions. On these you can strip indentations, you can translate escapes, and you can format or use a formatted. So if you have something in your string here that is, for instance, $S, you can actually say formatted and then say a variable here, and that will be added as the variable in your string. So there is a few functions that you can use to these text blocks. So next up, we have some deprecations. We have JEP 366, and this is deprecating the parallel scavenge and serial old GC combination. So this is when you're using both of these. It actually added a lot of problems and a lot of issues with testing, and it was cumbersome to maintain this specific combination. And when they looked at it, it weren't that many that actually used it and were interested in the maintenance of this. So it will be deprecated in this version and will be removed in later versions. They had also deprecated the Solaris and Spark ports. So Solaris implementations and specific Spark processes will not be supported by the JVM anymore. Spark is actually a system that is still used. It's still maintained by Fujitsu, I believe, but it's not something that will be supported in JVM. Solaris was a long time ago that I actually ran it, but I guess it's still around. But I guess that they didn't have the uptake. It was a lot of code that they had to maintain, so it will be dropped in a later version of the JVM. Then we have some things that were removed. They have actually removed something in this version. 363, they removed the concurrent mark sweep garbage collector. This is a really nice old version. It's actually something that is taught in the university as a very simple garbage collector, and something that conceptually is really good to learn about how to actually remove in a safe manner collect garbage in your program. But it's so old and not efficient anymore. Nobody uses it, so it's removed. They have also removed the PAC 200 tools and API, and these were mostly used to package your jar files in the PAC 200 format, and it's not used anymore either. Both of these were deprecated in JDK 11, so now 2 years later they have removed these features. So this was what was in JDK 14, the LTS wrap-up edition. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you especially liked any of these JEPs or have any questions about them or some comments or want to discuss any of them, leave that in the comment section down below. I read everything and answer most of it. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, like content about Java, some problem solving, or interesting new libraries, machine learning and so on, please subscribe to this channel, and I really hope to see you in the next video.